In this video, I'm going to rank every single mobility weapon in Fortnite history from worst to best. But what is a mobility weapon? This video is not just every, mobility item. It is every mobility weapon, which means that the items on this list are both able to do damage as well as traversing the map, as a mobility item does. Crucially, for this video, I will be ranking these weapons on both their ability to do damage as well as their mobility. So, for example, Spider-Man's web shooters are just a mobility item, whereas the ODM gear is a mobility weapon, since you can do both damage and also traverse the map. And finally, to be considered a mobility weapon for this list, the item must give the player significant mobility, right? Not just a little hover here and there. Enough of that long intro. If you go on to enjoy this video, use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop as always, and let's get into this ranking video. Alright, at number 28, the worst mobility weapon in Fortnite history are the Wings of Icarus. And again, we've got 28 items to go through, so these ones at the bottom here, we're going to kind of blaze through. And the Wings of Icarus, yeah, if you didn't know, they do have that drop effect that will land on somebody's box, kind of like a rocket ram almost, and can do damage. Running out of zone, the mobility is good, but trying to escape from somebody, the fact that the wings become part of your body and you can take damage just by hitting the wings, I mean, that is just brutal. The Wings of Icarus, for me, are not great for mobility, especially escaping a fight. It's like the Lawless Rift launcher, right? And then for damage, nobody was using these things to do damage. And at number 27 is Ride the Lightning. This is essentially the same thing, right? The mobility isn't really that great because, well, players can just follow you. They can hop in the same rift and follow you, really. And for damage, again, it's the same thing with the Wings of Icarus. You just drop on top of somebody and it does that weird, like, little explosion at the bottom. And so it's not really great at mobility and it's not really great at damage, and that's why it's at the bottom of the list today. And number 26 is the Lawless Twin Fire Slap Shotgun. I'm tired of talking about this weapon. It feels like it's been in every recent video of mine. It sucks as a weapon, and the mobility is decent, right? You do get the infinite sprint when you hold this thing out. And honestly, that's really the only reason why it's above Ride the Lightning or Wings of Icarus, because the Twin Fire Auto as a whole is just a terrible shotgun. It's one of the worst of all time, and I've actually ranked every shotgun recently, so go check that video out if you haven't. And number 25 is Iron Man's Flight Kit, and again, a very similar item to something like the Wings of Icarus. In fact, they're almost identical, except the Iron Man's Flight Kit, 1, will do more damage, and 2, don't have big wings flying off the side that are part of your hitbox, right? It's just you, and it's very hard to hit somebody out of the air. So for me, the ability to escape any fight, and, it's not like someone can just follow you like what you can with Ride the Lightning. For me, that's why it goes higher than the 3 items I just listed. At number 24, this might be a surprise, but it's the Kinetic Blade. Now, the Kinetic Blade used to be very good in Chapter 4 when you had unlimited uses, right? It was just 3 that would just recharge on a timer, but now you have durability on it. It came back in Chapter 6, and you're going to notice a trend through a lot of the bottom its on this list. Durability is a killer. When you have so many infinite ammo mobility weapons, you can't compare that to something that has durability, and it's really unfair. I hate durability. It has ruined so many items, and for me, it ruined the Kinetic Blade. And number 23, and this might be a surprise, but it's the Ascended Mist from Chapter 6, Season 3. The item itself is pretty good, right? I mean, you're actually invincible when you're in the air. That's great. The actual damage attack here isn't really anything special. It's just the mist gauntlets. The big problem here is this takes up 2 inventory slots, and 2 inventory slots suck. There are very few items that are worth it to take for 2 inventory slots, and for me, this is just not one of them, especially in a season like Chapter 6 and 3, which has a ton of really good items in it. At number 22 are Shuri's Black Panther Claws. And yeah, I feel like this is honestly the part of the list where you're starting to get into some really good items, honestly. Like, this list was not easy to make. In fact, it was one of the hardest ones I've had to make in a long time, because every item on this list, even the bad ones, bring something unique to the table, and that's absolutely the case here. It's a pretty solid damage item, and in terms of mobility, it's really, really good once you have it, like, kinetically charged up, but other than that, it's really not good at all. So that's why it's here at number 22. At number 21 are the Venom and Carnage Symbiote. Now, I thought to myself, should I include these on the list? Because they definitely are mobility, right? You get increased speed, increased jump height, and you get the ability to redeploy a glider. And don't forget, you do 60 damage when you grab somebody. And of course, that's going to be the damage ability that I'm going off of for this video. Now, as we know, that is really not why you're using this item. You're using it to bring somebody close to you and then pull out a shotgun and hit somebody for 200 to the face. On any other list, this item would be much higher. I think these are very, very good items, but the main problem is you need another weapon reason to use this item, right? Like, you can't just use the symbiote by itself. You need to have a shotgun with you. Whereas, I don't know, if I find the Black Panther claws on the ground, I can just use those. I don't need a second item. So yeah, the Venom and Carnage symbiote should be a little bit higher on any other list, but this list, they stay towards the bottom. At number 20 is the Rocket Ram. And you know what? I don't think the Rocket Ram is a bad item. I just think the Rocket Drill is everything that the Rocket Ram wanted to be, but just better. And really, that's all I've got to say here, right? The Rocket Ram came back in Chapter 6 alongside the Rocket Drill, and I never took the Rocket Ram. I took the Rocket Drill every single time. At number 19 is the Heisted Run and Gun SMG, and as I say in every video I talk about this weapon, I say the same thing. It is basically just an average to above average SMG with the ability to essentially have infinite sprint when you hold it out. You get that same ability with the Lawless Twin Fire Slap Shotgun. I just think the Heisted Running Gun is a better weapon than, of course, the Twin Fire Slap Shotgun. That is why it is, you know, a couple spots higher on this list. At number 18 is the Lawless Blink Pump and Dump. And again, this is a good weapon because you technically get infinite mobility. All you got to do is just reload, and every single time you reload, you get the Blink Dash effect. The weapon itself isn't good, but that Blink Dash, you cannot underestimate how strong that can be in a fight. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that at number 17, I've got the Heisted Blink Mag SMG. Of course, it is the same exact blink ability, but I just think the Twin Mag is a better weapon than the Pump and Dump. And that's really what it comes down to. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. The Twin Mag SMG is an absolute beast. I would actually go as far as to say it's kind of underrated. I absolutely love this weapon. At number 16 is the Base Boost from Chapter 6, Season 3. This is one of the hardest items on this list to rank for me because remember, this is every mobility weapon. And in terms of being a weapon, the Base Boost is essentially useless, right? You get what, like 10 damage on somebody? You can destroy some structures, I guess. You're really using this item for its mobility. Of course, it does have durability as well. I've always got to talk about that. But the mobility in fights using the Base Boost is so good that that's what pushes it so high up on this list, because really you're looking at like 95% mobility and like 5% weapon. And the exact same thing is the case for the Rocket Drill at number 15. The Rocket Drill is even more egregious. It is like 99% mobility and 1% weapon. If you didn't even know that you could do damage with the Rocket Drill, I wouldn't blame you. It is absolutely horrific as a weapon, but it is legitimately one of the best mobility items we've ever had in Fortnite history. And again, if this was just every mobility item, the Rocket Drill would be way higher up, but I'm factoring in the weapon part of it as well. And that is why the Rocket Drill just kind of sits at the midpoint in this list. I think this is a fair spot for it. Number 14 is going to be the Grapple Blade from Chapter 5. The Grapple Blade has not seen the game since Chapter 5 Season 1, and again, I'm going to mention it, no durability. Any item that has no durability is a huge bonus because you've got infinite mobility for the entire game. Like, yeah, the Rocket Drill has great mobility, but you're limited, right? You can't just use it the entire game. The Grapple Blade, you can use the entire game, and you get a melee weapon that is decent. It's not great, it's not terrible, I'm just going to call it decent. At number 13 are the TMNT Mythics, and so it shouldn't be a surprise that the TMNT Mythics are this high up on the list, or at least so much higher than the Kinetic Blade, because they are essentially what the Kinetic Blade used to be, right? You get the 3 dashes, they are unlimited, and the melee is pretty good. In fact, the melee is actually very snappy, right? It's almost like you lock onto somebody when you melee. You don't even really have to aim at all. They are a very good group of items, and they're all the same. Of course, that's why they're all grouped here together. At number 12 are the Hop Rock Dualies. The Hop Rock Dualies, of course, give you the Hop Rock effect. That is really good because you can pair it with other items like Shockwave Grenades for literally insane mobility. And as a weapon, the dual pistols, I think, are some of the most underrated weapons in Fortnite history, and so it shouldn't really be a surprise that it's almost within the top 10 on this list today. And at number 11 is the Eradicator Hop Rock AR. This is a brand new weapon that also gives you the Hop Rock ability. Now, I will say, this Hop Rock ability feels a lot more, how do I explain it? Like, it feels a lot more floaty, a lot more egregious than something like the Hop Rock Dualies, which can be good, but it also can hurt you. But I will say the ability to aim down sights in air with this weapon is absolutely huge. It saves this weapon. It makes it one of the top tier ARs in the game. And look, I've been a Fury hater since it came out in Chapter 6 Season 1, but for this weapon in particular, I really like it. And number 10 is going to be the Chainsaw. Yeah, I really like the Chainsaw. I think the Chainsaw is one of the best mobility weapons in Fortnite history. The Chainsaw ability is your classic, you know, damage doing melee weapon, but the mobility is just so good here. It's like airbending, but if airbending did damage, right? And so that shouldn't be a surprise that this item is inside the top 10. At number 9 is Thorn's Vampiric Blade. Yeah, you knew I wasn't going to forget about it. You might be saying, wait, Ty, hold on a second. The Kinetic Blade was at, what, number 24 on this list today? How is its mythic version all the way up at 9? Well, that's because, to my knowledge, Thorn's Vampiric Blade has not returned since it was in the game. The last time it was in the game, well, it was infinite. It was a regular version of the kinetic blade. That, by the way, also would siphon health and shield from your opponents every single time you would hit them with the melee ability. So think like the current version of the TMNT mythics, but if you got health and shield back for hitting people with those mythics. And so with all that being said, yeah, Thorn's Vampiric Blade deserves to be higher than those that I just mentioned. At number 8 is the Mechanical Shockwave Bow, and honestly, I feel like I'm at the point in the list right now where any of the items that I'm about to say next could be put at the number 1 spot. The Mechanical Shockwave Bow is incredibly slept on and one of the only good things from Chapter 2, Season 6. In terms of the weapon part of this item, it's very good. I mean, look, I don't like bows, but I will say a one-shot headshot item is always going to be valuable, and in terms of mobility, you have like 30 shockwave grenades, as long as you have full arrow ammo, which wasn't that difficult in Chapter 2, Season 6. That ammo was everywhere. Again, I think this is an underrated item in Fortnite history. At number 7 is the Typhoon Blade, and I feel like I don't really need to talk a lot about the Typhoon Blade. This weapon speaks for itself. We all know how annoying it was to go up against in the beginning of Chapter 6. It was just devastating. If somebody jumped in your box with a Typhoon Blade, you were going to die, and everybody you watched play the game in this season had a Typhoon Blade for mobility, and so that speaks enough for this weapon. But honestly, the same thing could be said for number 6 on this list, which is the Kneecapper. Again, you go watch any Chapter 6 Season 2 gameplay, I can guarantee you they have a Kneecapper. Now, I will say, with these two items in particular, they do have durability, which holds them back a little bit, but the Kneecapper's melee ability, being able to do fall damage to people, right? If you're on a mountain, you hit them, it sends them flying backwards. Whether you think the Typhoon Blade is better than the Kneecapper, that's up to you. These weapons are essentially clones of one another. I think the Kneecapper just beats out the Typhoon Blade, but it's extremely close. At number 5 are Storm Beast Pom-Poms, and again, another item that I literally had question marks next to it when I wrote it down in the document because I didn't know if I should include it on this list. Are these considered a mobility item? I don't really know. They're definitely a weapon. There's no question about that. They're a great melee weapon, but I think with how fast and how far you can travel once you turn into the beast, I do think it's fair enough to include it as a mobility weapon on this list. It's absolutely devastating. Now, I will say, towards the end of the season, people started to learn how to counter this item, but for the first couple weeks this thing was in the game, it was absolutely terrible. People were saying, I'm not going to play Chapter 6 Season 3 until the pom-poms get removed. They're incredibly annoying, and if you want to put it up a couple spots higher, like 2 or 3, I would understand that. If you want to put a couple places lower, like 7 or 8, I would also understand that. At number 4 is the Lawless Shockwave RPG, and yeah, this item's absolutely devastating. Its weapon capabilities aren't necessarily the best in terms of damage, right? You're only getting like 50 to 60 damage, but in zero build, you really see the use when, you know, someone's hiding behind a tree, right? Well, you want to root them out, just shoot this right next to them, and they'll go flying out of the way. Easy pickings for you, and in terms of mobility, it's one of the best mobility items in Fortnite history. It was a no-brainer for me that this item was going to be inside the top 5. And yes, while it uses ammo, as long as you play aggressive and you are killing people, which you're going to do when you have this item, you can essentially just get infinite refreshes on rockets on people. So while it's not technically an infinite ammo weapon, almost everybody has max rockets all the time. So yeah, I don't really see that being a problem here. At number 3 are the Nitro Fists. And again, this is another item that doesn't need any explanation. They are absolutely devastating. There's a reason why they were only found in Chapter 5 Season 3 and never again after that. Chapter 5 had this weird trend of having like a super broken item in every single season. Chapter 5 Season 1 was the Reaper Sniper. Chapter 5 Season 2, I would say, was probably Cerberus's Gatekeeper Shotgun. And Chapter 5 Season 3 had the Nitro Fists. Unbelievable for mobility, unbelievable melee weapon, just a great combo. And number 2 is one of the items mentioned in the beginning of this video. It is the ODM gear. The ODM gear is essentially the same mobility item that the Spider-Man web shooters are, but you get a melee attack. Of course, I've got to mention, it's a durability item, but let's be honest, these things were everywhere, right? These things were everywhere in Chapter 4 Season 2. It was not that hard to run out of ODM gear and just find another one, especially if you knew the map and you knew where the chest spawns were, because they were 100% spawns. The Attack on Titan chest I'm talking about in particular. Again, another item that shouldn't be a surprise at the number 2 spot, and you thought it was going to be at number 1. It's not, so let's reveal what that item is. At my number 1 spot today, guys, the best mobility weapon in Fortnite history is the Shockwave Hammer. I always thought the Shockwave Hammer was one of the best mobility weapons in Fortnite history, but as soon as it came back in Chapter 6, I mean, it's everywhere, right? Every single person you kill has a Shockwave Hammer. There's a reason why it is so good, right? Infinite mobility, and in terms of damage, it is incredible. You don't even have to actually do the melee attack to even do damage. And yes, you do have that long animation when your hammer gets stuck in the ground when you do the melee, but that shouldn't really be a problem as long as you hit somebody. Unbelievable damage, unbelievable mobility item. It's just like maxed out on both stats. And yeah, for me personally, it was easily at the number 1 spot. It's one of my favorite items in Fortnite history. All right, folks, I know that was a controversial one. Please, in the comment section down below, let me know what you would change on this list today. This was one of the hardest lists I have ever had to make, I'm telling you. I was at my computer for hours trying to rank these items, looking at statistics and everything. So, yeah, I know you're not going to agree with me on this, but again, let me know in the comment section what you thought. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace.